In 1859, on a dock in Savannah, Georgia, 436 human beings were sold in a single sale. It rained the entire time. Enslaved people who survived it called it, simply, the weeping time. That sale is documented. It is real. It happened 12 miles from the plantation in this story, and according to an oral tradition passed down through generations in that same region. A few years earlier, on a smaller plantation nearby, a 7-year-old girl survived a night that took 41 lives. She survived it because she could not hear, not her mother's voice, not a lullaby, not even her own name. But on the night the story remembers as the fire of 1853, Hettie felt it before anyone else did. She felt the heat before she saw the light. And that, according to the family who has carried this story for over a century, is the only reason anyone is telling you about her tonight. Savannah, Georgia, 1853, 12 miles inland. Along the slow black water of a tidal river sat a rice plantation the story remembers as Marsh Bend. You won't find that name in most history books, but places like it built the wealth of an entire region. Rice was not cotton. Cotton was brutal, but rice was lethal. The fields sat in standing water, flooded on purpose, drained on purpose, flooded again, and the people, forced to work them, stood knee-deep in that water from before sunrise until the light gave out. Malaria lived in that water. So did snakes. So did despair. Historians call the region where this story is set the Low Country, and in the Low Country, on plantations exactly like this one, enslaved people were valued the way you'd value a plow or a mule, something to be used and replaced when it broke. Hettie, the oral tradition says, was born into that system already, carrying something the overseer saw as a flaw. She had been deaf since birth. No one recorded the medical reason. Almost nothing about her was written down at all, because in the eyes of a plantation ledger, a deaf child was a child worth less at the market, less in the field, less in every column of every book that measured human beings like sacks of grain. Her mother, the story says, died when Hettie was 4, not from anything dramatic, from exhaustion and fever and a body that had simply been asked to give too much for too long. Documented plantation records from this era confirm that this kind of death, quiet and unremarkable to the people in charge, happened constantly. So Hettie became what the enslaved community quietly called an orphan of the row. No parents, no protection, passed from cabin to cabin, fed by whichever family had a little extra that week. And because she could not hear the world coming, she learned to watch it instead. Here is something almost nobody expects about this story. Her deafness, the very thing a plantation ledger would have called a weakness, was quietly becoming the sharpest set of eyes on the entire property. She read lips before she had a word for what that even was. She noticed which overseer's boots meant he was in a foul mood, just from the way they hit the dirt. She noticed the exact moment a hound's ears went flat, seconds before it barked, because she was always watching. The dogs, she had to be. A hearing child got a warning bark. Hettie got nothing, unless she was already looking. According to the oral history, the enslaved community on Marsh Bend adapted around her. An old woman remembered as Patience, who cared for Hettie more than anyone else alive, built a private language of taps and hand signs. Long before anyone had a name for it, 2 taps on the shoulder meant overseer. A flat palm pressed down meant get low now. This wasn't sign language as we know it today. It was something raw, something invented out of necessity, the way enslaved communities invented. So much out of necessity, because the world refused to accommodate them. So they built their own world inside it. And that invented language, that quiet, watchful survival skill, was, the story says, about to become the only thing standing between a 7-year-old girl and death, because something was coming that no one, hearing or not, would see in time. Stay with me, because what happens next is the part of this story her descendants say they will never stop telling. That summer, the account says, had been unusually dry. Cracked earth in the rice fields, low water in the canals, and slave quarters built from the cheapest, driest material available, pine board and pitch, packed close together to save space and money. Fire was always a fear on plantations like this. Cabins burned. Historical accounts confirm it. Happened more than most people today. Realize a dropped ember from a cooking fire, a lightning strike, a lantern knocked over in the dark. And when it happened, it spread fast. Because the cabins were built close. And because enslaved people were often locked in, or fenced in at night, to prevent what plantation owners called wandering. On the night this story centers on, the wind had shifted. Patients noticed it, the oral tradition says. The air smelled different. Not like rain, like dust and heat, holding its breath. Hettie noticed something else. She felt it in the ground before anyone said a word, a low vibration, faint, moving. Through the packed dirt floor of her cabin the way footsteps do. Except this wasn't footsteps. It was heat, expanding wood, the first cracks of something catching fire 2 cabins down, vibrating through the earth itself. She sat up in the dark. Patience was asleep beside her, exhausted from 18 hours in standing water. And Hettie, 7 years old, unable to call out, unable to hear the first screams about to fill that row of cabins, did the only thing she had ever been trained to do. She watched the door. The fire did not start with an explosion. Fires like this rarely do. It started small. The story says a curl of orange light under a door frame 3 cabins away. Invisible to anyone sleeping, but not invisible to Hettie, who was already awake, already watching, already feeling the floor grow warm beneath her palms. She shook Patience. Patience woke confused, and it took her 3, maybe 4 seconds to understand what the girl beside her was trying to say without a single word. Those 3 or 4 seconds in a fire that moves as fast as this one did were everything. By the time Patience got the door open, the row was already lit end to end. Dry pine, no space between buildings. A summer wind that had picked exactly the wrong night to shift. What happened next is the hardest part of the story to tell. Panic in the dark, people trapped behind doors that locked from the outside, a night watchman more concerned with preventing escape than saving lives. And by the time the plantation's overseers even reached the quarters, there was very little left to save. 41 people, the account says, died that night at Marsh Bend. Men, women, children, an entire section of a family, gone in under 20 minutes. Patience did not survive. She got Hettie to the door, out into the yard, into the wet mud of the Rice Canal bank, and went back for someone else. She never came out again. Hettie sat in that mud until sunrise, watching a fire she could not hear roaring behind her, watching people she loved not come back through that door, understanding, in the way a 7-year-old understands anything this big, that everyone who had ever protected her was now gone. Silence had kept her alive. It had also made sure she witnessed every second of it, alone. But her story, according to her descendants, does not end in that mud. What happened afterward is why this account was still being told, generation after generation, more than 100 years later. In the days after, Marsh Bend's owner did what plantation owners in this period so often did with tragedy. He calculated the financial loss and moved on. Surviving plantation ledgers from this era, historians confirm, routinely list enslaved deaths, the same way they list livestock losses, a number, a brief note, nothing more. 41 names. If they were even all recorded, reduced to a line item. Hettie, the oral tradition holds, was one of exactly 3 children from that row who survived the night. The story says she was noted in the plantations records only as a girl of diminished value because of her deafness, the same cold language used before the fire, as if nothing at all had happened. But something had happened. According to the account passed down through her family, the enslaved community that rebuilt itself in the weeks after the fire did something extraordinary. They didn't let Hettie become invisible. Elderly women taught her the hand language. Patience had started. Other children learned it too, so she was never isolated again. In a place built entirely around erasing people, this community refused to erase her. The story says she grew up on that plantation and lived to see freedom in 1865 when Union forces moved through coastal Georgia and slavery in America finally, legally, ended. By then, Hettie was 19 years old, and the girl who survived a fire she couldn't hear coming became, according to her descendants, the person the entire freed community turned to for warnings. Because Hettie always saw things first. Here's what stays with me about this story. We think of survival as strength, as running fast, fighting hard, being loud enough to be heard. But in this account, Hettie survived because she had spent her entire short life being underestimated and turned that underestimation into the sharpest kind of attention there is. The very thing a plantation ledger would have written down as a weakness was, according to the story, the exact thing that saved her life and gave a devastated community a reason to keep watching over her and each other for years afterward. History rarely remembers people like Hettie by name. Most enslaved children who lived through disasters like this one left behind no photograph, no gravestone with dates, sometimes not even a full name in any surviving record. What we know about stories like hers survives mostly through oral history, passed carefully from grandmother to grandchild, kept alive, specifically because the official record refused to keep it. That, maybe, is the real story here. Not just one girl, and one fire, and one impossible night, but an entire system that tried to make people like her disappear twice, once by working them past exhaustion, and once by refusing to write down that they ever mattered at all. And a community that said, no, we will remember her, even if no one else does. Somewhere in coastal Georgia, the rice fields are gone now. The cabins are gone. Even Marsh Bend itself, under that name, is gone. But somewhere in a family history, passed down through generations, a little girl who couldn't hear the world is still the reason that world remembers her at all. If a story like this deserves to survive another 100 years, the least we can do is not let it go quiet again. Tell me in the comments, what would you have done in Hettie's place, in the dark, with no way to call for help? And if this story moved you, subscribe, because there are more forgotten voices from this history still waiting to be heard.